You are lying in the dark, your eyes are open, you are awake. You are certain of it. You try to move your hand, nothing happens. You try to turn your head, nothing happens. You try to scream, and no sound comes out. You are wide awake, and you cannot move a single muscle in your body. And then you feel it, a weight, slow and heavy, pressing down onto your chest. The air goes thin, something is in the room with you. You can feel it watching, and you cannot even turn your head to look. This has happened to nearly 1 in 3 people alive today. It has probably happened to someone you know. It may have happened to you. And the thing crushing your chest right now was described, in almost the same words, by a farmer in medieval Europe, by a fisherman in Newfoundland, and by a villager in Japan who never met either of them. But here is the part that should frighten you far more than any ghost ever could. That thing on your chest did not crawl in from the dark. It has no face at all until your own brain reaches into the shadows and builds it one. The hands pinning you to that bed are yours. Every night while you sleep, your brain shuts your body down and holds it there, on purpose, like clockwork. You were just never meant to be awake to feel it happen. Tonight, we walk straight into that locked, silent room. Where the paralysis comes from, why the monster always appears, and why this exact terror has stalked every human who has ever lived. It starts with the paralysis, because every single night, your own brain does this to you, and it has a reason. Here is a fact that should not be comforting, and is not. Every night, while you dream, your body is paralyzed. Not resting, not relaxed, shut down at the source. Scientists have a name for it, atonia, and it is one of the strangest things your brain does to you. The moment you slip into the dreaming stage of sleep, a small cluster of cells deep in your brainstem sends out a command. It floods the nerves that run your muscles with 2 chemicals, glycine and GABA, and it switches your body off. Your arms and legs go dead. Your voice goes silent. For roughly 2 hours a night, you are, by every physical measure, completely helpless. A predator could walk straight through your door, and you could not twitch a single finger to save yourself. Your brain is wide awake and racing. Your body is a corpse that happens to still be breathing. Think of a car with the engine roaring and the wheels lifted off the ground. That is you most of the night, and your brain has a very good reason to bother. Because while your body lies frozen, your mind is somewhere else entirely. Running, fighting, falling off cliffs, fleeing something with teeth. If your body actually did what your dreams tell it to do, you would be in serious danger. Which raises an obvious question. How do we even know the paralysis is doing that particular job? For the answer, we go to Lyon, France in the year 1965. A scientist named Michel Jouvet is studying sleeping cats. He finds the exact patch of the brainstem that runs the nightly shutdown. And in a few of his cats, he switches it off. Everything else about their sleep stays the same. They still dream. They just are not paralyzed while they do it. What happens next is the reason we understand any of this. The cats fall asleep. Their eyes close. By every reading on his machines, they are deep in a dream. And then they stand up. A sleeping cat rises onto all fours. Its back arches. Its claws slide out. It creeps across the floor, ears flat, and pounces on prey that is not there. It hisses and snaps its jaws at the empty air. It is fast asleep, and it is hunting something that only exists inside its own skull. Jouvet is watching an animal's nightmare walk around the room on 4 legs. That was the proof. The paralysis exists to keep the dream trapped inside your skull, where it belongs. Your body holds perfectly still, so your mind can run wild without hurting anyone, yourself included. So the paralysis is a gift. It is the cage that keeps the monster in the dream from climbing out into the bedroom with you. Which brings us to the real question, the one you came here for. What goes wrong on the nights the lock refuses to let you go? Here is where it gets strange. Waking up and being paralyzed are supposed to be a single switch. One flips off as the other flips on. The body wakes, the lock lets go, and it happens so fast you never notice. Sleep paralysis is what happens when that switch gets caught halfway. Your mind crosses back into the waking world. The lights come on upstairs. You are aware, you are thinking, you know you are in your own bed. But the command to release your muscles has not arrived yet. So for a few seconds, sometimes a full minute or two, you are a wide awake person locked inside a paralyzed body. For that minute, you are buried alive inside yourself. And then it gets worse because of the way you breathe when you dream. During dream sleep, your breathing goes shallow, fast, and automatic. Your body takes care of it without asking you. So when you wake into the paralysis, you cannot pull a full breath. Your chest feels tight, compressed, as if a hand is slowly closing around your lungs. Your waking brain goes looking for a reason you cannot breathe, and it reaches for the worst possible explanation. Something heavy is sitting on top of me. You have not even seen the monster yet. Your body has already invented the feeling of its weight. But a tight chest still does not explain the figure in the corner. The presence, the eyes in the dark. So where does the monster actually come from? This is the part that turns a simple timing error into a nightmare. Stay with me because it is the heart of the whole thing. When you dream, one part of your brain runs hot, the amygdala, It is your threat detector, your ancient alarm bell, the piece of you that screams danger long before you can think a single word. And another part of your brain goes quiet, the prefrontal cortex, the calm, reasonable adult in your head, the voice that says, relax, there is nothing there. During REM sleep, that voice is mostly switched off. Now, stack those two facts on top of the paralysis. Picture this. It is 3 in the morning, you are flat on your back, in the dark, unable to move a muscle. Your alarm bell is blaring at full volume. Danger, danger, danger. But the reasonable part of your mind, the part that could talk you down, is not on duty tonight. So, your brain is stuck with a screaming alarm and nobody to answer it. And a brain cannot stand an alarm with no cause. It cannot hold fear with no source. So it does something desperate. It builds the source. If I am this terrified, something must be here. If I cannot breathe, something must be crushing me. If I cannot move, something must be holding me down. And so it paints a shape into the dark corner of your room. A figure that should not be there. A presence you can feel breathing. A weight that lowers onto your chest and leans down until its face is inches from yours. The monster is your own threat detector, alone in an empty room, drawing the predator it was built to expect. It reaches for the worst thing it can imagine, presses it down onto your chest, and then it makes you lie there and watch. A researcher named Alan Cheney at the University of Waterloo spent years cataloging exactly what people see. The visions sort into 3 families over and over across thousands of cases. The first is the intruder, a sensed presence, a shadow by the door. Footsteps, a whisper you can almost make out. The second is the incubus, the crushing weight on the chest, the choking, the flat certainty that you are about to die. The third one is stranger, and we will come back to it, because it breaks the pattern in a way nobody expected. Fear turns up in more than 8 out of every 10 of these episodes. This is the oldest survival software you own, running in an empty room, with no adult supervision. And before you tell yourself this is rare, look at the numbers. In 2011, researchers pooled together nearly every study that had ever been done on this, more than 36,000 people in total. Around 1 in 13 of the general population had felt it at least once. Among students living on bad sleep and worse schedules, it was closer to 1 in 3. Other estimates put the lifetime figure near 30% of everyone. In Japan, where the experience has its own name, it may be as high as 1 in 2. So this is not some rare medical curiosity happening to unlucky strangers. It is one of the most common, frightening experiences a human body can produce. The person sitting next to you on the bus has decent odds of knowing exactly what you are talking about. Now, about that third kind of vision, the one that breaks the pattern. A small share of people do not get the intruder or the crushing weight at all. Instead, they feel themselves lift, floating up off the mattress, drifting toward the ceiling, looking down at their own paralyzed body from the far corner of the room. It sounds like the most terrifying one of all. Strangely, it is often the calmest, because this floating sensation does not run through the fear alarm. It comes from the confused balance and motion centers of the brain, misreading a body that is awake but perfectly still. No threat detector, no invented predator, just a quiet, weightless drift. It is the same broken switch. It is even the same paralysis. The brain simply tells itself a gentler story about it. Which is the whole secret, really. The paralysis is always the same. The monster is whatever your brain decides to build on top of it. And here is the part that should raise the hair on your arms. It does not seem to matter where on Earth you were born. Across cultures that never touched, the monster comes out almost identical. Go back 1,000 years, into the villages of Northern Europe. People there spoke of the Mara, a crushing spirit that creeps into your room in the dark, lowers itself onto your chest while you sleep, and slowly squeezes the breath out of your body. That word Mara is still hiding inside a word you use all the time. Nightmare. The nightmare was the name of the thing that sat on your chest and would not let you move. Bad dreams only borrowed the word much later. Cross an entire ocean now, to the fishing villages of Newfoundland, cut off from those old European stories. They talk about being hagged, an old hag who slips into the room and crouches on your chest, pinning you flat until you cannot breathe. Different continent, different century, same weight, same chest, same terror. Go to Japan. There the experience carries its own word, kanashibari. It means to be bound in metal, as if invisible iron chains have locked you to the bed. Go to the hills of central Italy, to the region of Abruzzo. There the visitor is the Pontefice, an evil witch, or a ghost, or sometimes a monstrous cat that climbs onto your chest in the night and holds you down. A researcher named Balan Jalal, now the leading expert on this in the world, went to that region and interviewed the people who lived there. 38% of them believed a real supernatural being had caused their paralysis. Picture this. It is the year 1781. A painter named Henry Fuseli lifts his brush. He paints a woman thrown backward across a bed, deep in sleep, and crouched on her chest, grinning out at you, sits a small, squat demon. He calls the painting the Nightmare. It becomes one of the most talked about images in Europe. He was painting a sleep paralysis attack more than 200 years before any scientist could explain it. He just did not have the word. Jalal has now studied this same experience in Egypt, Italy, Denmark, Turkey, Poland, the United States, and South Africa. The costume changes every time. The witch, the hag, the iron chains, the little demon in the painting. The thing underneath never changes at all, which means all of those cultures, separately, alone, with no way to compare notes, looked into the same darkness and drew the same creature. Because none of them were making it up. They were describing something that was really happening inside their bodies. So, step back and ask the question that actually matters. Why would evolution build something this cruel into us? Why hand a whole species a system that sometimes traps it, awake and terrified, under a monster that is not there? The terror is just a side effect. It was never the point. Remember Jouvet's cats. This paralysis is far older than you, far older than our species, far older than the first human who ever lit a fire. Every mammal that dreams carries some version of the same nightly lock. It has been handed down for longer than there have been people around to be afraid of it. And for all that time, it did one quiet, life-saving job. Picture an early human, asleep on hard ground, or up in the fork of a tree, or curled just inside the mouth of a cave. In the dream, that human is running flat out across open country, chased by something fast and hungry. If the body followed the dream, it would kick and thrash and cry out. It might bolt upright and sprint straight off a ledge, or out into the dark, or into the exact jaws it was running from in the dream. The paralysis is the thing that kept the dreaming ancestor silent, and still, and alive until morning. The sleepers whose bodies stayed locked lived long enough to have children. The ones whose bodies acted out the dream, probably, often did not. You are descended from 100,000 generations of the ones who held still. That frozen feeling you hate so much is a large part of the reason your bloodline survived the night, again and again, for millions of years. The monster on your chest is only the price of admission. It is what a life-saving system looks like from the inside, on the rare night it holds on a heartbeat too long. But if you still doubt how important that lock really is, look at what happens when it fails the other way. Because the paralysis can break, and when it breaks, it is not an imaginary demon that shows up. It is something real. There is a condition called REM sleep behavior disorder. It is Jouvet's cats, but in a human bed. The nightly lock stops engaging. And so, the sleeping body starts doing whatever the dreaming mind commands. People who have it do not lie still. They punch, they kick, they shout, and sometimes they leap out of bed and run straight into the wall. A man dreaming that he is fighting off an attacker will throw real punches, in a real bed, into the face of the person sleeping beside him. Some have woken with their hands around a partner's throat, the dream still fading behind their eyes. No memory at all of reaching out in the dark. Doctors first pieced the condition together because patients kept turning up with injuries they could not explain. Broken lamps, bruised partners, a cut over the eye from a fist swung at a dream. It affects maybe 1 in every 100 or 200 people, mostly later in life. And there is a quiet, heavy fact buried underneath it. For a lot of these patients, that failing lock turns out to be an early warning. Years down the line, a large share of them develop Parkinson's and related diseases, as the same deep brain regions slowly begin to break down, which tells you exactly how important the paralysis is. It is wired into the oldest, most protected machinery in your head. When it works, you wake, roll over, and forget you were ever helpless. When it lets go too slowly, you meet the demon. And when it stops working altogether, the dream itself climbs out of your head and into the room with you. So here is where all of this leaves you. Tonight, you are going to lie down. You are going to close your eyes. And a system older than your species, older than fire, older than the first word ever spoken out loud, is going to quietly switch your body off so your mind can run free in the dark. Almost every night of your life, it will let go at the exact right moment, and you will never even know it was there. But every so often, it holds a beat too long. You will surface into the dark, unable to move, with your oldest alarm screaming and nobody awake inside your head to answer it. And your brain will do what human brains have always done. It will reach into the shadows and pull out a monster. The Mara, the old hag, the witch on the chest, the little demon in Fuseli's painting. A Japanese word that means iron chains. Every human who has ever lived has stood at the edge of that same darkness, felt that same weight, and given the thing a different name. That is you. That is what you are. A dreaming animal held perfectly still by an ancient hand, so you can survive one more night without running off the edge of the world. The weight on your chest was never trying to kill you. It is a large part of the reason you are still here. If you have ever felt it, the terror was real, but the danger never was. Now, you know what was actually holding you down. And if you want to see what your brain gets up to once the paralysis lets go, once your mind is finally free to wander anywhere it wants, watch this next.